Oh, look at that gorgeous mug. There we go. All right, man. But yeah, this is episode 44 of Dreadful Talk. As those know, 44 is a special number to me. That was my number I played football wearing. So special episode with a special guest. And I'll let you introduce yourself, man, because like I know you as Dylan, but I don't know if you want to introduce yourself to the people as anything. But yeah, I'll let you introduce yourself, and we can get rolling here.
Sounds good, brother. So what's up, y'all? Dylan Walker-Chargin. Artist name is Aldon. Producer, musician, kind of anything and everything involving music. I started off doing live music. From live music, kind of moved into more of the studio vibe after I got here to Berkeley.
Okay.
And on top of that, doing my own stuff, you know. Known Dom for a hot minute now, going way back. His pops is like an uncle to me, man, and vice versa. So.
Yeah, exactly. I call his dad uncle. He calls my dad uncle.
For real.
Families go way back in the day together. So, yeah, I look at this guy like family, and it's a pleasure to have him join me here on my podcast, Dreadful Talk. Go subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your audio podcasts. But yeah, man, so first serious question right off the rip. How's the weed in Boston?
You know, it's all right. It's all right. I still know Cali out here though, because you know me. So like,
yeah.
I'm still getting a little touch of Cali every now and then. But the weed ain't bad. I think the stuff out here mainly comes from Maine. That's like where the stuff kind of filters down. Just because like, yeah, I guess that's the spot out here. I didn't know it up until like I was out here maybe a year or so. But you know, get the fingers searching, you can find something.
Yeah, no, exactly. That is funny. That's something on the like. Anybody not on the East Coast would never guess that like Maine is a big weed state. I never would have guessed that in 1,000 years. I didn't. But yeah, no, man. So and while I get to that, so Dylan grew up out here. Really spent most of his life out here on the West Coast, here in the Bay Area, and we're kind of opposites. I grew up in Oklahoma, then moved to the Bay. You grew up in the Bay, and then you moved out east. But you're currently living in Boston, and so I can relate to, you know, moving across country, and I can relate to being in a strange new city. But yeah, you know, part of what I want to talk about on this podcast is music and all the things you've learned, all the things you're doing, and then I also just want to hear a lot about that. Just the whole perspective of somebody moving from West Coast to East Coast. You know, there's a lot of stigmas. There's a lot of like I'm sure the East Coasters probably had like pre-assumptions about you being from the West Coast. And you probably had some assumptions about how shit goes down on the East Coast. And I'm super interested to hear that perspective because, bro, the furthest east I've ever been is like Muskogee, Oklahoma. I've never been anywhere. I've never been east of the Mississippi. I've never even been to Arkansas. I don't know if St. Louis is geographically east, but the Midwest is like as far east as my ass has gone. So and I'm very curious about it. You know, I mainly just like TV shows and shit. I've watched a lot of you know the iconic East Coast TV shows, and it just got me thinking of like if I like always like can I picture myself on the East Coast? How would I like that? But yeah, so you said the weed's like good, but not great, like not quite on the Bay Area's level, but not many places is, right?
Exactly. I mean, coming from pretty damn close to the Emerald Triangle and one of the weed epicenters of the world, if not the epicenter, you know, it's hard to get that out of there. But like, as far as the transition goes, like out here, if you're from the West Coast, you're either from LA or San Francisco, you know? So like, that's the funniest assumption that I first got was like, oh, you're from LA. I'm like, go like 5 to 7 hours north, and then you got me, you know?
Oh, bro, man, like, I always like to give my friends some Oklahoma shit because, like, if I had $1 for every, like, hey, bro, I'm in San Diego, let's meet. Like, I swear, if I had $1 for every one of those text messages, I'd be doing pretty well for myself. But yeah, because California is so big, I feel. Oh, and then even like. I mean, because you grew up in essentially the Santa Cruz area, right? Like the Ben Lomond, Santa Cruz area. It's fair to say. And I mean, yeah, like and my mom grew up her whole life in San Jose. And San Jose is a pretty big place. But like whenever my mom moved out to Oklahoma, like, oh, where are you from? LA? And then she'd be like, oh, actually, like San Jose. And my mom would essentially just boil it down to San Francisco. So,
yeah, exactly.
I think
you got the NorCal star and the SoCal star. Everything in between is just kind of Cali, you know?
Exactly, man. But yeah, man. So how you liking it out there? How you living? I mean, I assume you're liking it well because you essentially elected to stay out there kind of longer. And so I assume shit's going well for you, man. Let me ask you this, because I know you're doing both, but like, are right now, I guess at this kind of moment in time, are you more focused on like behind the scenes stuff or like making music as like an artist?
Little bit in between, man. So like right now I recently got an engineering job at a studio about 35 minutes south of my house in Boston. So like it's dope to be able to say like, hey, I'm actually a contracting engineer at a professional studio, and like, appreciate you, brother. So like this past weekend was dope. Had like 2 really sick artists come in, 1 full band tracking, drums, bass, violin, guitar, the whole thing. And that was a blast. And that was on Friday. And like, but it's nice because that place is like 25 to 35 minutes from my spot now. But I also kind of, in this spot, like I just kind of tricked out one of our rooms here at the spot to be a little home studio. So like, then if it's options also to artists that I'm talking to, you know, if they can't really afford to come in and record and track and rent the space and pay my engineering fee at like that studio, I got a much cheaper option here where we can get down and dirty and like get personal with each other as opposed to like being in a big environment, you know?
Oh, totally, man. Yeah, no, that's cool that you have all bases covered. So like I used to rap myself. My wife makes some music. And so I've had my fair share of like studio experiences. And when somebody says they have a studio, or they either say I have a studio or I have a studio we can go to. Those are like the 2 things. Like everybody's real quick to say that. And you have no idea like what you're getting yourself into until you pull up. Because like I've
no lie, dude, no lie.
Yeah, like and you can't judge a book by its cover either, because I've had motherfuckers that I would have sworn was bullshitting bring me to a really nice studio, and then I had some people like, oh, okay, surely this guy's got some legit hookup, and it's it's a straight up like, you know, garage closet or something, and you know, it's all cool, and like I said, especially when, you know, making music is cool and networking is cool, and I'm not hating on anything, but just like it is a wide spectrum. The word studio is probably the most it casts a broad net, right? Like
absolutely. A studio can be your room, and you bring an artist into your closet and sing into some coats, you know, like that.
Oh yeah,
that could be a studio. Like,
man,
you know,
I'm a closet all-star, bro.
There we go, man. There we go. Yeah, that's what's up. And it's also, you know, like it's a great place to start, you know, like anything that kind of helps dampen that sound is a dope place to start, you know, but like, I've been involved, as you know, in the audio game for a minute now, like transition from live, and like that transition was really dope and pretty easy, because like I kind of, in the live sense, I learned how to be almost an artist producer, how to read people, how to help them get comfortable in a new space where they're about to present their true self, or as true to self as they want to be as an artist, you know? Mm-hmm. So like going from that little closet, yelling into some coats, to like getting my own spot, building an ISO booth in my own space, and then interning at this place all last year. And then eventually the owner of the studio being like, hey, we got a contracting engineer position for you. You know, it's like those steps I've been there too when you're in that closet, and it's just dope to see that transition kind of moving in the right direction, you know?
Oh yeah, man. And it's so dope to see somebody just stick with something and just work your way up the ladder, work your way up the levels. And I'm going to start with like a simpleton question, you know, just because, and I'll be real, and this is coming from somebody who's I've paid for studio time. I've worked with engineers. I've you know, I've seen the process happen before my eyes. And I still can't give you a firm definition of what exactly an engineer does. And I feel like most people can't. I'm admitting it. But I feel like people like try to act like, oh, yeah, sure, I know what that does. But then, like, okay, expand upon that, and like this conversation would end there. And also I want you to talk about the difference between a producer and an engineer. Because like, especially coming from the hip hop, the rap world, you see somebody sitting behind the board, whatever, that's a producer. But then at the same time, like weird, random, like pretty much anybody can get a producer credit on an album. So I want you to talk about like, what is engineering, and then like part B, like differences in engineering and producing.
Totally. So like as an engineer, it's like if you think of engineering, just the word, probably first thing that comes to mind is like mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, you know, and like all of those have the kind of same thing in common, in that like the tech side and like the making stuff work and troubleshooting and all that stuff. So like an engineer in the studio, as you said, like a producer might be on the deck or might be on the board doing stuff, but producer and engineer can also be together. They can both be, an engineer can be a producer can be an engineer. So like what makes the engineer an engineer is like at the studio that I contract at, there's a whole bunch of outboard gear. So like if you're in a DAW, like a digital audio workspace such as Logic or Ableton or Pro Tools, you know, those kind of things, there's plugins, and I'm sure you've seen plugins in a session where they might add effects like reverb, or they might do some compression and stuff like that. So like in the studio where I'm at, I'm thankful that we have all that hardware. So we have these beautiful preamps which are used to kind of power the microphone. And then so what your engineer kind of does is gets you set up in your space, mics everything up, goes behind the console and kind of records the session, adds EQs to all your hardware if you have it, compression, all the kind of things before it goes into Pro Tools, which is what I mainly use, or Ableton, vice versa, whichever DAW, you know.
Yeah, for
kind
sure.
Of the tech side of it, you know.
Okay, all right, for sure. No, that is helpful because so it can be interchangeable, which is probably why most people, such as myself, are so confused by the term, is because, you know, sometimes like one is both, sometimes it's not.
Well, precisely. And it's not interchangeable as in a producer is an engineer is a producer. It's just sometimes they are both, you know, like, and there's also different kinds of producers. There's an artist producer, there's a track producer, there's like, you know, so like as a track producer, anyone you get beats from when you're in the rap game, you know, like they are a producer, they produce the track.
Yeah, because you'll see that, right? Like if you see a song, it's like, you know, insert artist here, produced by whatever beats. And it's like, that's the dude that made the beat, but he could be he was probably 9 times out of 10 nowhere near the studio that song was recorded in. Yeah. So like that's why it gets confused. I think especially to a lot of hip hop fans, is because you see the word producer, or like for example, like Diddy, one of the most like famous, I guess, and I guess successful producers of all time on paper is Diddy. And I always, and I don't know if like this is going to be a rhetorical question or if you actually know the answer to this. So by all means respond however you see fit. But like I never knew what the hell Diddy did. Like obviously there's the famous like, you know, West Coast, like dancing all in the videos and like and obviously there's you know, and obviously he did stuff and he's known as like a producer. He has a lot of producer credits to his name. Like what does somebody like that do? Like do you even know like how?
Yeah, no, totally, man. So like someone like Diddy getting started with Bad Boy and stuff like that, you know, like he was probably, I mean, he guarantee, I don't know my facts straight, like going back, but like, I'm sure he helped. He was either in the room or he had a track producer building a beat out with an artist. And I would put more, just from my knowledge based off it, more of an artist producer. So he would be there. The beat maker producer would be in the same booth with him in the same room. They'd have an artist in the live room or in the ISO booth tracking vocals. And he would be the one kind of getting the artist comfortable, kind of being like, okay, you know, like go a little bit harder for this line, but then lighten up when you come back here, and like get your diction and your enunciation a little bit better when you say these words, you know. That's kind of like, that's also a producer. Yeah.
All right. So like for transferring it to, you know, I do a lot of sports topics and things, like almost like a coach, if you will, like a loose analogy, kind of a coach, which can, anybody that knows sports knows a good coach can make a big difference on a team. So I mean, a good producer, because I always kind of question, you know, like is it just kind of stealing credit, or how much is that kind of adding to the equation? And obviously it varies person to person, but like the right producer with the right artist could bring a lot of value and be worth all the credit, you know.
Absolutely.
In some scenarios, and in some scenarios. That's interesting for sure, man. And like this is going to transition perfectly into one of my next questions is like, so you produce and engineer essentially, is that fair to say? And
totally.
And I've experienced this kind of tug of war, give and take myself in the studio. Is and I'm picking myself as from an artist perspective, like, I don't want my producer / engineer to like say nothing and give no input, because otherwise, like, what are you here for? I could just go buy a microphone. But at the same time, you know, it's a fine balance between kind of stepping on toes and being overbearing, or kind of button heads, clashing heads. And that's why, and then you'll see whether it be rap or it happens in other genres too, but like an artist kind of gets a good vibe going with the producer, and they may make a couple albums together because it's like, it's just a working vibe. So like, yeah, just as somebody who, like, I've experienced it from the artist side of the screen, from somebody on your side of things, how do you kind of try to tiptoe that balance of, like, obviously you're especially in your level, hired to do a job and make a song better and give your input without kind of stepping on toes or clashing heads or trying to maybe take a song in a different direction, or, you know, is it just like how you say it as opposed to what you say? Like, what are some of your
big part of that is that, you know, a big part of it is how you present those words. And a huge part of producing, like as an artist producer, is somewhat being a therapist, psychologist in a way, you know, like knowing how to interpret how this person gets comfortable. Like the first thing I always ask if I have an artist in the studio is like, we don't go to music. We say, how was your day? You know, like, how was your week going? Like, get a feel of how their vibe is. If they're in a dark place, if they're in a good place, you know, you just kind of got to feel that out. And yeah, kind of judge it from there. And you can, you know, I mean, you're good at reading people too from all the jobs you've had in the past, you know, like, you know how to get that vibe. Like that's a huge part of it, is just being able to read that vibe and then ride on that and get them to either get more comfortable, or if they're just not having it that day and they're not feeling it, you let them do their thing. You might throw a few things out, and if they budge back, that's cool, man. You know, because like as a producer, it's our job to help encourage the artist to get them their best selves out, you know, to get their honest best selves out. And if that happens with them alone, awesome. We can hit there and hit roll. We can hit record. We can do that, you know. But a lot of people like to get pushed a little bit. A lot of people like to get that little nudge in the right direction, you know?
Man, my biggest problem is there's like two versions of me. There's like in the moment me, and then like looking back on it, hindsight me. Like when I was always in the studio, like in the moment, I had such like a laser vision, and like I was trying to bring something to fruition, and I didn't, like, I was like stubborn essentially in the studio. But then, like, listening back on stuff, or just hindsight 2020, or looking back on stuff, it's like I totally should have listened to the advice. You know, like I find myself that, like, I don't know, if I was to go back and make a song, being, I guess, older and wiser, whatever you want to call it, I would definitely be more open to more experienced ears, right? Especially if somebody has more experience. You know, or, you know, just a good ear. Obviously, you know, it's a talent. You know, like you said, you hired somebody to do a job. Let them do their job. I definitely would do that. You know, hindsight 2020 for sure. You ever dealt with somebody just like stubborn, like, no, like my way or the highway?
You know, like, I love all my clients, and they're all different. You know, like they're all different. Everyone has a way that they can get comfortable. Some people like to get that vibe, maybe track one. Like, so I always track once or twice through the complete song. Without giving any input, you know, I let them get the feel, I let them get the vibe, I let them do some stuff, and then it goes back to what we were saying earlier with how you approach them with this, you know, like if they nail something, you always give credit to that artist. So like if we have a take and they just murdered it, you say, dude, you fucking murdered that take, like you did that shit. And then if there was something that could be built upon, you say, I think we could build on this a little bit better, and we could do this part done. So if there's something that you think could be better and be kind of felt around, it's a we thing. It's a we all are. If they nail it, it's all on them. They killed that shit, you know?
That's so similar to coaching, bro. Like similar. Similar. For real. That's so interesting. I never made that correlation until today. That's really interesting to me. Coming from just like a sports background. And it's also, you know, what else? Another comparison that comes to mind here, and you talk about that, is my experience with tattoo artists. And once again, early on, I was very stubborn. Like, I would go to a tattoo artist and be like, literally trace this fucking shit on me. Like, no creative freedom. Like, this is what exactly I want. I trust you, zero. And then the more tats I got, and you find out artists that you're comfortable with, a really talented artist, and I've easily learned that like the more input you let that tattoo artist make, it's gonna come out better. Like at least in my experience, I'm sure somebody out there is fucking shit up, but like in my experience, if you're working with somebody legit and you let that person do their job and make it better, which is what you're paying them to do, it comes out better every time. And I'm to the point now. I literally, for my last tattoo, I don't know if you saw like the gorilla I posted, but like I pretty much walked in and was like, wait, what are we doing, homie? Like the ball's in your court. Like I had some ideas, but I let him pick the style, and and it's, in my opinion, that's my best tattoo. And like so, I think for all you stubborn, hard-headed young rappers, young artists out there, like take it from me, take it from him, like. And now, if you're working with somebody that doesn't know their shit, I feel you hold your ground. But if you're working with somebody legit, or especially if you're paying money to somebody, like if you're paying somebody to do a job, let them do their job, and don't be so hard-headed, because like they're not trying to make the song worse. And chances are they've made more songs than you have. So I don't know. I just wanted to message to everybody out there, man. And then next kind of little question for you, bro, like. How important is, and it probably varies for different artists and maybe even different genres, but like how do you balance like getting the perfect take in studio versus like, all right, we're just going to fix it in post? Are we going to do you know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes do you have to get it kind of like close as you can and then try to go back and fix it afterwards? Or like, are you like, do you have to try to really get it perfect the first time around?
Shout out to my boy Go Deers, just in the comments there. He's him and my buddy Ryan. We just started that production company recently, so like officially LLC. Just wanted to do a quick shout out before I get back to that question.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, bro. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching.
So like, I'm sorry. So like post or during. So like a big thing that I always emphasize, especially I work with a lot of vocalists here at the studio here in like the smaller zone where like. Either we are building a track, either I'm producing the track for them as well as producing them as a singer. And a big thing that I always kind of drill in is like pitch can be fixed, timing can be fixed, emotion, there's no plug-in for emotion,
Ooh, so like, that's good, because I think there's quick sidetrack real quick. I think that's what a lot of, and I'm going to be like kind of get off my lawn real quick, but I think what a lot of new music is missing is that emotion. And exactly. You're right, because everything else can be plugged in but that. So that's like the only thing missing. And from a lot of music. And it's not just nowadays. There was artists in the past that lacked it too. But I feel like it's definitely happening nowadays. But I just want to touch on that real quick, not to get you off your point.
No. But no, that's exactly it, man. And it's like every time I have someone in, if they're like, oh, that take was, that was trash. I never, like when we do overdubs or if we take after take after take of the same verse, never delete anything. Like a lot of people do it and they track it and they're like, I can take it better, and they record over it. But there might be literally one word in that phrase that you feel, that you really connect with on the lyric level. And like, that's where vocal comping comes into play, where you can grab literally a syllable at a time, a word at a time, and plug that into a full vocal. And that might make that stand out that much more, So like, as I said, like tuning, easy. Timing, easy. Emotion, impossible. So that's what I kind of try to get out of the artists that I work with, is letting them get into that comfortable space, making sure they feel that they can be vulnerable with me and with themselves, and then kind of letting it roll with it from there,
Man, that's funny that you say that, and I'm probably give this artist more credit than probably anybody else does, and I'm not even that big of a fan. But on this one very subject of emotion, and it's like, because a lot of the auto-tune and stuff can kill some of the emotion, but there's this artist, and he's not even that hard anymore, but YFN Lucci, and like when his music, it almost like sounds like he's like crying, or like it almost sounds like, and so. Yeah, and it's like I said, it's like there's something about that comes through his music. There's other very similar artists, but like he does, you can't fake that emotion. And it's just like you talked about. That's interesting, and that's a lot of my favorite music. Like to me, if a song makes me feel nothing, like I literally delete it off the playlist.
Yeah, then it's background, then it's elevator music. Then it's just background music to be there. And there's definitely a genre for that. There's money in and there's definitely an angle that you can start getting some really good sync licensing or stuff like that. If it's just music that's happening in the background, a lot of ambient music, you know, like a lot of that lo-fi chill radio with like the girl on the computer and shit like that. You're not really listening for the lyrics or for the emotion. You're listening for the vibe, you know, it's just chill. You can do whatever you want when you're listening to it. So there's definitely pluses to everything, but that really being able to listen to a song or an artist and you put yourselves in their story because that's what you click with. That's kind of the magic, you know, that's kind of the magic there.
Oh yeah, man, especially me skating lately. Like I've been really picky about my skate playlist and my skate, it's the randomest assortment of music like ever. Like everything from like hardcore trap to like James Brown to like Van Halen, like everything. But every single song on that playlist, like just like sparks a little something in your brain. Like every song makes me feel something, and that's what I need when I'm skating. I can't just like I actually noticed those kind of background music type of songs when I'm skating actually like distracts my brain. Like I don't know, it takes me out of like tune with my body. Like my mind body connection gets like thrown off. It's like it's almost like an annoying like buzz or humming or something, you know. It's like
just this weird shit like trying to swat the fly kind of shit.
Yeah, man. All right, next question, brother. It's very similar to my engineering question, and like I said, it's kind of embarrassing as somebody who's like made music before, but I feel like I'm not the only one. Like I feel like this is something people fake the funk on. Like this is one of those things I feel like people like lie.
You're never the only one, bro. You're never the only one, you know?
so like what is mixing and mastering? And before you answer, like because one of my favorite little like anecdotes, and I don't even really know how true it is that and I know you're a big Nipsey guy. You've listened to a lot. Like, legend has it, I guess you could say, that none of Nipsey's music was mixed and mastered at all up until that final album. And you can kind of tell the difference when you listen to it. And so, like, I always found that super, super interesting. And you know, and different people will kind of downplay or upplay the importance of it. I mean, I imagine coming from your background, you think it's really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so like what is that process? Because like I said, that word gets thrown around a lot. Hell, I've literally paid people to do it and didn't even know what it is. Like, this is something that you do to a song after you record it, right? Totally. So yeah, like kind of what, and you don't have to get, you know, too like into like, you know, bogged down in the jargon and stuff, but I know it's kind of like cleaning it up, crisping it up, but yeah, just kind of in layman's terms, like so people can stop lying and saying they understand it. What is it?
Yeah, no, for real. So like also like different mixing strengths and needs will definitely vary for genre. Personally, I feel like a track can always use some mixing, but if a beat producer say like produces a 2-track, which is just like a stereo recording that someone like an MC will spit over, like there's not much to mix if you're just working with one vocal and one stereo recording, you know?
I see what you're saying.
And that's where the kind of stuff where the early Nipsey stuff, he probably either paid for a beat from a homie or like a homeboy made a beat for him. He did some top line, which is like writing lyrics and melody over the top. And then he had this track. And like for all of his mixtapes and shit like that, I'm sure that's what he did. But if you get into full live band stuff, that's where a mixing engineer really becomes a little bit more important, because if like I do a lot of just mixes on top of engineering, like I do a lot of mixing gigs, and what's involved with that is I kind of look at it as like you're handed a piece of clay that kind of looks like something, but it's not definitive yet. So you have all these pieces that are kind of put together on this thing, but it's not quite the image that you want yet. And then what a mixing engineer kind of does is sculpt that already made picture until it becomes more vivid and closer to kind of what the artist is feeling. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Like taking something and making it like HD, like kind of taking away those soft edges. I feel it. That's a dope way to describe it. That paints a nice picture. Now I think something that a lot of people do, and I did just then when I asked those questions, and you just kind of took it apart, is those words mixing and mastering are like attached at the hip. Like that's one word, like Baskin Robbins. Like it can
be. Yeah, it can be.
But you just described like, so like mixing it, like it can be, yeah. So like talk about that a little bit, you know, like then what is mastering? Because you know, that didn't describe what mastering. Like I'm just a little confused, and yeah, difference between mixing and mastering and how they work together and why they're like attached at the hip like that.
Totally. So like mixing and mastering, if you're looking to bring a track or put a track on Spotify, what mixing does is it shapes that clay, you know. What mastering does is it adds the glaze and the paint, you know. So what you kind of do is after someone's done with mixing it, say I'm done with mixing a client's EP track, whatever, and they have either I'm doing mastering or someone else is mastering it. What it's called is like bouncing a track. So you pretty much export all of those tracks that are in your session into that one track that say like an MC would spit on top of, you know?
Yeah.
So once you have that just stereo recording of all the pieces that you want to put together with this puzzle, then, and the puzzle's taken shape, then it's just the mastering engineer's job to do a few things to bring it to stream levels, because they're depending on what platform, there are different kinds of fidelity and 16-bit, 24-bit, like, and then there's different like 48 versus like 24, or like something that is, you kind of need to do it to get it to that next level to sound both competitive on Spotify. You need it to be a certain loudness level. So if you're listening to a track that, say, I mixed by a friend of mine or I mastered, you want it to not drop or increase in level if you're just listening to a playlist with people. You know?
Like if one of your songs comes on after like a famous person's songs, you don't want like just like be super obvious something different here. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I learned that early on in my podcasting. When I'm editing, I turn the volume levels up because I learned that my first couple episodes is kind of quiet. Yeah, for sure, man. And that's just obviously basic levels. But
no, but it's the same kind of thing. You want it to be competitive with contemporary professional stuff that's out there. So that's kind of what a mastering engineer does, is like gets it to that next level, whether it's with some compression, some EQ, some imaging, which is kind of using the stereo field, spreading it out, you know. That's kind of what lands on a mastering engineer if it's not done in the mixing stages. Okay.
Thank you so much. That actually cleared it up a lot. I have a question for you, man. And it's something you hear like a lot of old heads talking about it, and like real music heads. And I definitely put you under that category, true music head. Now, how much quality is lost? You just kind of talked about it. Different streaming services kind of have different like requirements, levels, all that. Yep. How much quality is lost? Like, say when you're streaming, I'm a Spotify guy. Like when I'm listening to a song on Spotify, you know, like if you had to try to give it like a percentage, like when the athlete's hurt, they're like, oh, he's at like 80%. What percentage of that true song are we getting when we're listening to it on something like Spotify or Pandora or whatever the fuck?
Spotify is pretty high fidelity. Spotify does good. Where you'll lose fidelity is on some place like YouTube, where you're listening to it, and a lot of people don't realize that like a 240p versus a 4K, it doesn't just change the video, it changes the audio too. So like,
I had no idea, bro. No, explain on that, because I literally on my really long podcast, like my Beefy Boys ones can go like 3 hours, and I have to take it from 4K to 1080 just for like file size, or else I would never even be able to do anything with it. And so so that actually affects me personally. What expand on that a little bit if you don't mind.
So there's this thing which is like, it's this term called dithering, which adds a little bit of noise just to cover the compression that happens when you lower the quality of it. So like if you have a track, like Tidal is a streaming service that streams at, I think 48. I think that's like the highest fidelity you can get is on Tidal. Spotify does it a little bit, but that's why you can't upload a track unless it's their format. You need to upload a format that's 16-bit 24. And like, so that's kind of where that kind of comes in, is if you're taking this track that was made for Spotify, and then you have this on YouTube, you're gonna hear maybe it's distortion, maybe the harmonies, maybe the little things that stand out dynamically when you listen to the track on a streaming platform, maybe those kind of get blended a little bit, and you just get a lot of extra noise as opposed to like the clear picture, you know?
Wow. And then say on a something like, because like say going back to like the old heads, like on something like vinyl, is that improved? Or is there like how does vinyl play into this? Does that shit like really, is it better on vinyl, or is that just like nostalgia? Like what's going on?
Definitely hits more of the nostalgia mark. Like if you're listening to vinyl, it's not going to be like Spotify level. It's not going to be streaming digital level. Well, and it's purely just because of the static of that vinyl sound you hear, like, and a lot of people nowadays add that to their tracks because it does give a vintage classic vibe. So they might either send it through like an old vintage reel-to-reel recorder emulator on not Spotify, on Pro Tools, Ableton, Logic, whatever they're using, to kind of give it a little bit of that old vintage vibe, that classic feel, you know?
All right, no, and I definitely have heard that on certain songs, or like especially like I said, big hip hop fans, like you'll hear it a lot on like interludes, like the little like talking scenes. They'll try to make it sound old timey. I know exactly what you're talking about. No, that's interesting. And then like one of those Kendrick Lamar's albums, he actually did record it using the old technology. I want to say it was To Pimp a Butterfly, and you can hear it how it sounds kind of jazzy, or it adds that little bit of what you're talking about. That stuff is always like it's super interesting to me, just so far, just kind of over my head. And talking about over my head, bro, you went to essentially what I've been told is like the best music school in the world. Essentially, like you went to Berklee College of Music out there, and it's in Boston, right? Kind of just talk about. I mean, I know it's a lot to sum up, but just like what makes it kind of what separates it, and like what did you gain from attending an institution such with such prestigious institution?
So like Berklee's awesome, man. Like Berklee's dope. The experience is dope. The gear is dope. But you don't get your money's worth out of Berklee if you do not connect, if you do not network, if you do not make good connections with your teachers, and that's something where like it's on you to make this experience worth it. You can't go and be like breeze through these classes and take this stuff, leave out, and like, yes, it helps to have Berklee on like your degree when you're trying to get into a studio or your artist, but in the real world, man, they don't care. They don't really care where you're from. If you got it, you got it. If you don't, you don't.
Like if you're working with a real artist, like not like you said, the degree comes in. Like if you're working with like a company or whatever, but like a famous musician wants you to record them, like they're not looking up at the wall at like your frame. I feel you.
No, they don't care about that. But the connections is what has really made Berklee worth it for me. It's where I've been like, for instance, like rest in peace, my brother Jeff, who was my first PI back here. He passed away in my last semester from some complications. But
sorry to hear that.
Like he made my Berklee experience, man. And this dude did the thing. He like toured with Maxwell in the 90s, Al Jarreau, Layla Hathaway, like background singer for these cats on massive big tours throughout the US.
Wow.
And a lot of cats like that are at Berklee. A lot of cats that like either the old cats that are teaching there or doing anything like that, they've done the thing. They've lived the life, and now they want to give it back,
Yeah, and that's so important, man. It's so important to take advice from somebody that's done it. Like I've had a lot of people come at me with a lot of different opinions about I should do this or do that with the podcast. But it's like, quite frankly, unless you have a successful podcast, like it's going in one ear and out the other. And I'll tell these people that, and they'll make it seem like I'm being some big dick. And it's like why would I listen to somebody who hasn't done it? And,
totally.
and you get that firsthand experience. Like I said, if Theo Vaughn or Joey Diaz wants to give me some advice, I'll literally do whatever. I'll listen. You have my ears, but
if Rogan gives you a call and is like, "Hey, you should do this," you'll be like, "I'll do that."
I'm gonna do that. No, exactly. So that like you said, that's invaluable. Getting that firsthand experience, and just this is going to be kind of a little bit more abstract, but I'm sure you've probably had these kind of thoughts of like, man, how many students are at Berklee approximately, just ballpark?
I would guess, because they have multiple campuses, I would guess around 4,000 to 6,000 in like all their spots around the world.
All right, so just to be vague, let's just say use the phrase a few thousand. You take a few thousand people, however many thousand, a few thousand people, but they're all kind of focused on something similar. Like, I know it's not like identical. So somebody may be focused on violin, or you were focused on like engineering and vocals, but like they're still focusing on music, and it's just like that's a powerful thing. Like I said, if you had 1,000 people focusing on really insert any topic, you know, like it's gonna breed excellence in that topic or what that field, whatever kind of label you want to put on it. But yeah, that just has to be a really, really unique energy. Because I mean, it's a great feeling if you have like 10 people in a room with all similar focus. So like a whole campus of people kind of similar energy, similar like goals, similar interests, like that has to just be beneficial just in and of itself. That had to be a cool experience.
It's definitely dope, but it can also be a little suffocating, you know, because like if like Berkeley is the pond where all the big fish in the small, Berkeley's the ocean where all the little big fish in the small pond go, you know. Everyone here is the best in their community. Everyone here is the best vocalist, the best guitar player, the best whatever, you know? And then they're thrown into this environment where they're no longer the best, because there's always going to be somebody better at that than you are. Perfection is something you can reach for, but there's no such thing as actual like perfection, you know? So like attaining that is awesome, like working towards that goal. But a lot of people either have the ego mindset or like, and ego and confidence are very different things, you know? Like if someone's a confident player, like it's always the quiet ones, no matter what game you're working in, if it's music, if it's podcast, whatever, if it's the person that doesn't talk about it, they're the ones to watch. You know, they're the ones that don't talk about themselves. They talk about everybody else. Those are the OGs that are going to make it, because they're letting their talent talk. They're not talking for their talent.
They're putting in the work. Yeah, that applies across a lot of things. Man, what you just described reminds me so much of like the first day of college football practice. Because like there'll be guys who, like, you know, in their small little whatever town in Texas or Oklahoma, you know, they own every record at that high school.
Yep.
And then they came, like there was this one kid, I'm not going to say any names, but he went at like the smallest level of Texas football, like the very smallest. And you've heard about Texas high school football. So like he came to this small Oklahoma college and was like, oh yeah, I'm a Texas boy. But there's obviously other Texas boys like, sorry.
Yeah, for real.
And so like, But he literally, like I said, he owned the passing record, the touchdown record, like every single record. And he was thought he was this hotshot quarterback. He shows up and he's like literally like seventh string, like whatever last string is.
Yep.
And he stuck around maybe a week or two and was like, he deuces like.
Yep.
And I'm sure that similar type of thing probably happens in an environment like Berkeley. I said it's just a competitive environment. Kind of, you know, like you got to step your game up. Like you said, everybody was the best in their little town or their little group of friends or whatever the case may be. Now it's like, all right, now what? It starts there. Like you restart. A lot of people don't realize, like, when you level up, like you have to like restart, like your accomplishments
back at the bottom, maybe.
Yeah. It doesn't like carry over. It's not like accumulating interest. Like you have to restart earning your equity all over again, for sure, man.
Totally.
Something I've always kind of wanted to ask you, bro, and I don't know, just now's the best time. So your dad, who you know, so I'm very close with, I have a lot of love for, and your dad, he's a musician. If you've ever been to like a music in the park in like the South Bay area in the last like 15 years, you've probably seen his dad. And so, a very talented guy, loves music. You know, introduced it to you as a young age, and you know, extreme analogy here, but just bear with me. Like you see, like guys like LeBron's son having success in basketball. Like, do you think music, like obviously athletes make a lot more sense, like genetically, biologically, get passed down. Do you think anything can get passed down, like talent-wise, like from generation to generation, or do you think it's just like a nurture over nature type of thing, like you were just raised around it and things like that, or do you think there's a little something, a little bit of that it factor that can maybe get passed down, like unexplained?
I think there's definitely that thing, man. I think there's definitely like like from my pops, you know, like my pops can sing, he can play keys, and like I was always singing from a very young age, and I think I can kind of contribute, at least having the ear and the voice to produce some and know if it's wrong, to my pops. Absolutely, you know? And
yeah,
like,
for sure. Yeah, and it's not to say that you didn't like work or you didn't work to perfect.
totally.
Like LeBron's son still goes to basketball practice. He still lifts weights, but he still has a little something extra that like than his classmate does, you know? So, yeah, no, I've always wanted to ask you that question, and I'm glad we got to do it on air because, like I said, yeah, your dad's a very talented musician, and you're a very talented musician. But some people resent that. Like, some people will be like, well, no, like, you know, he didn't fucking take all these lessons and spend all these hours. Like I said, it's not to discount. Like, I think you have the right view of it, because some people like let it factor in too much, and then some people like don't give themselves enough credit. And then some people go the opposite end of the spectrum where it's like, oh, fucking, I was the one putting in the work. Like, but I think you have a nice kind of like down the middle, like a little bit of hard work, a little bit of, you know, talent, you know, and it goes a long way when those two things intersect.
And that's the thing. Like, if you can combine, if you can learn knowledge that makes the raw talent make sense, and you can then find where to put that talent, how to approach that, and how to kind of shape it. Because a lot of people, like I'll say vocalists, for instance, because that's what I am, is like a lot of people have a great voice, but a lot of people don't know how to use that great voice. You know, a lot of people don't know, like, you know, a lot of people can have a dope ass skate deck, but not be able to do anything, you know? And it's like, you need to be able, and that's through learning, that's through listening mainly, you know, is like that you can't learn if you're talking, you know? So like, that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, man, and just, like I said, once again, making my damn sports analogies, like there's a lot of guys that can run fast. There's a lot of guys that can throw a football far. There's a lot of guys, you know, who look good with their shirt off. But like, there's not a lot of guys that like are willing to do the things necessary to like, you know, get something out of it. You know, whether that be college or pro or whatever the case may be. Like, I tell the story all the time that like I was literally the least talented member of my friend group as far as like damn near across the board, but I was the only one.
You worked your ass off though, man.
Yeah. And I did the right things. Like, it's not just like hard work without like direction or like doing the ancillary things like is wasting everybody's time. But yeah, for sure, man. No, I kind of want to talk about a little bit of just like some of the things moving West Coast to East Coast. Yeah, man. I was like, just real basic level. Unexpected favorite thing about the East Coast. Like obviously, I don't want you to say like school or like music. But like something like you didn't necessarily expect to love about it, but now is one of your favorite things. And then also, like, what do you miss the most about California? Like, not including friends and family, like places or food or things like that.
Totally. Like, so as East Coast, like, I appreciate blunt honesty, and there's no better place in the U.S. than the East Coast for blunt fucking honesty. You know, like, in California, there's a lot of scooting around the answer. There's a lot of right to your face and then stabbing you in the back kind of shit. And out here, if they don't like you, they'll tell you fuck you right to your face. And I love that so much, you know. So
that's not like a stereotype. Like that's real.
Oh,
like
no,
that East Coast like brutal honesty, like
straight up.
That's real. Okay, that's cool.
It's real.
I always thought I would like it. I've never experienced it, and I probably would like dishing it out more than taking it.
Come out and visit, homie. Come out and visit.
But that's like the mutual agreement, right? Like, like you have to be able to give it to take it. Like, so like if you can tell somebody, what the fuck are you doing? But then you got to be able to take somebody telling you like, what the fuck are you doing? And that's cool. Because out here in Cali, it's like the few people that are real or like too real, you know. It's like, like there's no like happy medium of giving it and taking it. It's like, I just got out of the pen and I'll stab you.
Yeah. For real.
There's not like a healthy
no, it's not a little exchange. It's just one or the other.
Oh man, and then yeah, whether it be food, whether it be culture, whether it be, I think I might know what your answer is. But what are you missing most about your, you know, your hometown, your home region? Like I said, obviously friends and family excluded. That's kind of goes without saying.
Honestly, like, and I haven't gotten to explore as much out here as I should have, just because I've been on the grind. But like, I miss the nature, man. I miss driving over 17 and getting a whiff right when you go down the hill and knowing I'm in Redwood and Ocean Land. You know, like I'm in a place that, and maybe it's comfortability's sake because it's like where I grew up and spent the majority of the time. But like my good boy Go Deers, who's on here, Aaron, he's from Oakland. Like that's where he grew up, and like same thing with him is like just the environment, being there, and like friends, of course, we miss the homies, we miss the family and all that, but just the aspect of like being able to drive down to Westcliff and chill with the doobie and some homies, just looking out over the water and it being gorgeous out. Like those are the little things I miss, are the moments surrounding the environment where I grew up, you know?
Yeah, man. No, and I gotta say, no, you grew up in a very special place, because I don't feel that same way about where I grew up. So
yeah,
it's not just you grew up in a very special place, because I feel the same way when I drive over 17 and I ain't even from there. Like that's a very, very special place. Anybody that's never been to Santa Cruz, never been through the Redwoods, like put that on the bucket list. It really is magical. It's special, man. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I miss the food, I miss the homies. But as far as like a physical location in Oklahoma that like I miss, like honestly, not really. Like I can't. Yeah. I don't think I can name one. Like restaurants, like I said, and like people and memories. But like as far as like something like the Redwood, like there's no like Oklahoma equivalent of that. At least like in my experience, man. But man, and then like what about like food wise? Like is there something that like you didn't eat when you lived in Cali that you eat a lot of now out there on the East Coast?
I mean, honestly, California is pretty well spread on the food, you know, and like the one thing that I massively miss out here on the East Coast is real Mexican food. Real Mexican food is like East Coast is way too far away to even get it right. You know, like if a lot of it's Tex-Mex and not even like Texas Mexican food, it's like Chipotle kind of shit, you know, and like. And that's something, man. Like I ain't dogging Chipotle. I can munch some Chipotle every now and then. But going to a taco stand and just getting some good pastor with some onions and cilantro on it, like you can't do that out here, you know. And it just doesn't taste the same, doesn't hit the same.
Yeah, man. That's really why I chose to do my my burrito reviews that I do.
Absolutely.
Is you know, because I was watching like the Barstool Pizza reviews. You know, that's kind of the East Coast, like the pizza by the slice kind of vibe. And then I was like, damn, like, I'm, like, in the hot spot for burritos. I've had people from L.A. and people from San Diego will argue, and they have their good arguments. Like I'm sure it's fire. But, like, I mean, San Jose, compared to a lot of other places.
It slaps, dude. It slaps, bro. Yeah.
It's hard to beat. And, like, because I'll even going to, like, even just, like, Sacramento, or, like, when I'm up in, like, Tahoe, Sacramento, like, it's a noticeable drop off, and that's only a couple hours away. So I can't imagine how it is. You know, back in Oklahoma, the taco trucks and the authentic Mexican food started coming later on. Like I bet now you could find some pretty decent stuff. Like early on, like Oklahoma's like progressing really fast. Like like pretty much since they've gotten the basketball team, like things have like sped up. And but like before that, it was a pretty Tex-Mexy, pretty gringo. But then pretty recently the food trucks and stuff started popping up, and you can get some pretty decent Mexican if you go to a taco truck. Now you can find like there's clear delineation between like the sit down kind of Tex-Mex style versus like the food truck style, because you know Oklahoma isn't too far from Mexico, just right up I-35, man. But
little hole in the walls are always the best spots, you know. They are, man. Stand in a gas station or something like that. That place, like it's gonna kill. You know.
oh yeah, for sure, man. For sure. Always slaps. Now, man, how did you adjust to the cold? Now the Bay Area, for those not from California, it's not L.A. or San Diego. Like it does get a little chilly in the Bay Area, so it's not like you're moving there from Hawaii or something. But I've been spending a lot of time up in Tahoe all winter. And so I kind of got to experience living in the cold. But how did you like it? And like, my follow-up question is it windy there?
Okay, well, I'm going follow-up first. Hell yeah, it's windy as a motherfucker out here. Like it is crazy. Like my boy Ryan, he's from Chicago, and he says Boston is windy as hell. Like compared to Chicago, the windy city, you know. So like
Yeah, yeah.
Like wind here is ruthless. But the cold, like I've always kind of, my body temperature, I kind of run hot. So like in the cold, I'm comfortable with throwing on a hoodie or like just layering up and I'm chilling. You know, the winter's cool. The summers can get a little humid, but like not crazy hot. Like they don't get kind of California 115, 110 hot.
Yeah.
But you are playing with the humidity too. So like,
yeah.
But as far as the cold, man, I've grown to love it because, like, okay, the snow can get old after the first 4 months of snow, you know. But what you do learn to appreciate is the nice time more. You know, the spring, the fall, the summer. Like when that finally rolls around, the city comes alive. People are out, like people are just in the sun enjoying. You hear music everywhere, and it's like a flip switches from hibernation mode to like let's go out. You know.
No, that's dope. That's I hear that a lot of East Coasters feel that same sentiment. Like people in LA or in California don't. I mean, it's like the classic concept. You can't appreciate the good without the bad, but it just applied to weather. I feel it. I like to say I put in my time in the bad weather. I got my stamp on my card. I have full right to appreciate the California sunshine. But But man, yeah. See, to me, that question is one and the same. Like, if it's windy, I'm the biggest bitch ever when it comes to cold. Like even 50 degrees. Like, if it's 50 degrees, but there's like a 20-mile-an-hour wind, like count me out. Like, fuck that. Like, I hate. But on the flip side, if there's no wind, like I'm cool for like 20. I'm cool even with snow. Whatever. It's only the wind. Like, I'm mainly basing that off of my Oklahoma experiences and my Tahoe experiences. Because, like, in Oklahoma, bro, it'll be 55 and you'll be like, teeth will be chattering. It's like a 30-mile-an-hour wind and it gets overcast and shitty and whatever. It may be a little wet. And, like, and then, like, when I'm up in Tahoe, there's snow all around me. It's like 25 degrees, but there's, like, no wind. Like, I'll chill out there all fucking day. Like, I'm good. Like, to me, that wind is just a make or break, bro. Like,
and the wind out here, bro, it's some real wind. Like it's like even windy days in San Francisco, like compared to here, it's just the wind that if you don't have a windbreaker or if you don't have like an extra layer underneath some jeans, like you are cold. It bites. Like it bites, you know?
Oh, yeah, that wind will cut through your jeans, man. I know you probably don't listen to like too much like mainstream stuff, which is obviously probably a good thing. But like, what are your thoughts on kind of like the current, I guess if you will, state of music, like where things are, like where things are headed? You know, you probably are ahead of the curve compared to most people as far as like kind of seeing what's on the horizon. I don't know. I've been feeling like I feel like on the bright side, and I don't even mean this only in a negative light, like bitching about auto-tune. Like I feel like a lot of like soulful, like Anderson .Paak type stuff is kind of coming. I don't want to say back in style because it was never in style, but it's getting more, or never out of style, but it's getting more of a spotlight, or maybe that's just what I've been listening to more lately. I don't know. What are your thoughts on kind of the state of music, you know, as you see it?
Yeah, totally, man. Well, and as far as like, one thing that it's really cool to see is like there aren't definitive genres that place artists in a specific zone anymore. You know, there's a lot more of free reign with what kind of music you want to play. And of course there's still like the pop people, like pop as in like Dua Lipa pop, you know, but pop is a massive genre now. Pop is country, pop is hip hop, pop is trap, pop is soul. You know, it's like Bruno Mars and like that Silk Sonic with Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars. Like that's R&B, that's soul, but it's also pop, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and like that kind of thing is super cool to kind of see where people can really find who they want to be, which comes along with independence, you know, like when you were going back and it was just the record labels that could really get you on the spot, you had to kind of play the game a little bit. You had to kind of like, you know, do the corporate thing for a little bit. And then once you're big enough, you can start doing your own thing. But now with all the indie artists and labels and like, you can kind of just be you know? And like, that's really cool. And like a cool breath of fresh air that you can kind of be who you want to be as far as your music goes, you know?
Yeah, man. That's been a battle long fought. I mean, going back to like Hendrix and Prince and I mean, there's a list a mile long of artists that kind of like was
Marvin Gaye, like breaking out of Motown and coming out with What's Going On was like the, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure. And just like, yeah, people kind of blend in genres. Like I'm a big Mac Miller fan. Like I don't even know what to call his last couple albums. Like that's not really rap. It's not really like what is that? But it's his music, and exactly like what would you call Anderson .Paak? Like whoever's job it is to like place music in categories at like Spotify or whatever, like those guys need a raise. That's getting harder. That's getting harder by the day, man.
For real.
But yeah, man, just a couple more questions for you. I really appreciate all your time, man. So a lot of people out there, you know, like you said, a home studio can be a great place to start, or a great place like you still have one to this day. I'm sure yours is sick, but like I think there's a lot of people out there that either want a home studio and don't know where to go, or they've attempted and they kind of maybe don't know. If you had to narrow it down to like one piece of equipment, like if you're going to invest, like don't cheap it on this one thing. Like if you're a young producer, young musician trying to put your first home studio together, you know, I think a lot of people's first instinct is to probably go mic. And I don't know if that is what your answer will be, but what's that one piece of equipment to like, you know, don't go cheap on to like invest in, you know, if you had to do it all over again?
Yeah, I'd say it's a hard question because like a lot of people like mixing on headphones or monitors, you know, but like for me, like a good interface, like a good, like pretty much mic pre is what it is. Wherever you plug in the microphone and that interface goes, like there's a lot of things that can go weird with the cheaper ones of that. There's a lot of like digital to analog conversion rates can get kind of messy and you can get some hums. The preamps on them can be a little loose or be just a little bit dirty and you hear it when you adjust them and stuff like that. So like I would say an interface is a hugely important thing, having a good interface. And then next I would probably say monitors. I would say like having some good like flat monitors. And when I say flat, it means like if you're listening on the monitors, look up their frequency response, and the flatter the graph, the more honest they'll be. So like if they have like Beats headphones, for instance, Beats headphones, I don't know about the later ones. Like I got the OG first edition Beats back there on the wall, and like they sound great with hip hop. They sound great, like the bass kicks. But if you listen to them on like a jazz track, it's just, you know, like the bass, it was made for hip hop. So
I know what you're talking about. I used to have subs in my truck, but like if you tried to like listen to like a baseball game or something, it sounded ridiculous. Yeah,
totally. So like having a good listening environment, and that also goes with your monitors, is like if you look at this stuff on the wall here, like this stuff is all like soundproofing about back there too. It's just to deaden the sound of the space so you're not getting like reverberant frequencies or like overtones that are kind of moving around, bouncing off of the walls in the space. So like having a good listening environment is just as important as having like a good set of monitors, because you need a good listening environment to really get what you want to get out of your monitors, you know?
Wow, bro. I love your answer for this reason. Let me explain why. Is because my brain, and I feel like where a lot of beginners' brains go, and just a lot of people in general, I low-key was expecting you to either say laptop or mic, and you just talked for like 5 minutes and didn't say the word laptop or mic once. And I feel like those are the things that most people like would go to first when like, okay, I'm building a studio, I need a laptop and a mic, and you just that wasn't even on.
And maybe that was a little preemptive of me assuming like if you don't have a computer, of course you need to get a computer. You can't run anything without a computer, you know? And like microphone makes sense too, but like if you have even like an SM58, which is like a very standard dynamic microphone that you use, you can have that for probably around $90, $90 to $100. Laptop will cost you more like $2 to $4 grand, depending on the laptop or depending on the computer. So I guess that is like, if you're building a studio, yes, you need to have something to run your interface off of, and you need to have something to capture sound. But after the microphone, like I would say it's so important to have really good interface and good monitors to be able to listen honestly, you know?
Yeah, for sure, man. No, that's definitely good feedback out there for anybody because like I said, there's a lot of people that like want to build a studio or maybe they're starting to, but I feel like a lot of people go about it in like really inefficient ways. Now, let me ask you this: are you an Apple guy? Do you use Apple computer? Like, I don't know. You hear people say they're good for music. I don't know. I trust your opinion more than other people's.
Yeah. As far as if you're running interface, like any kind of audio interface, any digital audio workstation, I feel like Mac is the way to go, at least because I'm a Pro Tools guy, and you can go PC for that as well. But like, I got into it with first like messing with GarageBand when I was much younger, you know, and like I got my first MacBook in junior college because I was taking like a Logic class, and I was doing a lot of producing and recording in Logic. And that is, a lot of people love that. And with Mac, like hotkeys can be interchangeable and they're different if you're on PC or Mac. But I would say I love Mac. I'm still rocking an Android phone, but as far as my computer, like I'm sticking with Mac just because I'm honestly not sure if it's the drivers in there or what, but I've always been on it. It's never kind of let me down.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Kind of thing.
A lot of interfaces, a lot of digital audio workstations, and a lot of MIDI stuff. A lot of them communicate really well through Mac. So like that's kind of, I would say MacBook and Mac in general is kind of the standard to go to in a studio, is like Mac Mini, or like if you got the money, a killer Mac Tower or Mac Pro, you know, like Mac is definitely the standard as far as music production goes, you know.
For sure, man. Yeah, I think I'm going to get one myself soon, too.
Hey, like, there you go.
I've been doing the podcast off the phone, you know, for almost a year now. And I mean, it does its purpose, but I think in order to go to that next level, I think I'm ready to get, you know, the classic setup with the camera and the mic and the computer. I'm working on that. So I really valued your input there because like I was leaning Mac. I've always been a PC guy, but I think I'm gonna go Mac for that. And then really last question for you, bro, is what can we expect next from you? You got any projects on the horizon? Is there you have a website, like just what's next for you, and like where can people support you, and what can people expect from you next?
Totally, man. So like right now, like came out with my first single, On and On, last May.
Yeah.
Just go check that out. Spotify, Aldon, AILDON, On and On is the track. And I'm working on my EP as well. So I got a lot of songs that are either mid working right now, like they are getting the grind out. Got a really cool like just vocal guitar one coming up, a vocal piano one, a kind of lo-fi, like almost lo-fi but not quite lo-fi beat song that's going to be coming on my EP, hopefully not too far in the future. So I'm going to have an EP coming out, which is exciting.
Hell yeah.
As far as the mixing and engineering stuff, a lot of dope artists coming out with music that I was fortunate to be a part of. Homegirl Eva Sita, who like killer performer from Ivory Coast in Africa, met her here at Berklee. Dope vibe, really cool, like cool Afro beat, but also some trap flavor here and there. And like was fortunate enough to work with her on her live EP tracking, which we did this past week. As far as the production company that me and my homies started, got a whole bunch of cool artists coming through that as well. That's called RBB Productions, that we also have an Instagram for that. And a whole bunch of cool people with that. A lot of mixing. Varo Vivids, who was on here for a little bit. If you're still here, what's up, Varo? Appreciate you. I was fortunate enough to work on some mixes for her stuff coming out. Friend Taylor's working on some tracks, like just all good things and kind of everywhere, just working on stuff, you know?
Yeah, no, you're a busy man. You're a man of many talents. Hey, man, and honestly, like, could be mutually beneficial. Like, if any artists you work with, like, want to come on the podcast, shout out.
Dude, oh, yeah, that'd be dope.
Feel free to link us up. I could provide a platform, and it could all work out smooth, you know? So, yeah, but, looking forward to, really looking forward to that EP, and I really encourage everybody to go check out that song, On and On, by, it's Aldon. I fuck it up every time, AILDON. And it's a great song, and I promise you it won't be what you expect. And, and yeah, man, like I said, this is episode 44. So fun. I really appreciate every second of your time, man. And this will go to YouTube on my YouTube channel, Dreadful Talk Podcast. Please go subscribe, like, share some videos. And it'll also go, if you're an audio podcast person, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your audio podcast, you can find it there. Give me a 5-star rating if you don't mind. But I appreciate it, bro. You have a great day.
I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for having me on, bro.
You clam chowder eating bastard. Enjoy it.
Yeah, I know. Lobster roll, you fucking lobster roll. Yeah.
Take it easy.
All right, homie.